Alright, so insofar as where we're at today, guys, we have a way of background. Everyone knows what authority is, what is income. We looked at exclusions from income. We computed gains and losses. We know what the basis is. We know what the amount realized is. We know what the character of income is. We know what recapture income is. We can identify capital assets, non-capital assets. We know whenever we say code section 1231, we do the weighing process. We know it's subject to two exceptions in the form of 1231A4C, code section, the sub-hodgepodge, and the recapture of 1231C. We know anytime we say 1231, we also think of code sections 1245 and 1250. We also think of any time there are so-called related party transactions, we think of code section 1239. Once we have our character down pat, we spend quite a bit of time, well, we spent one class looking at who is taxed, right? Who is taxed? And we saw that that chapter is bifurcated into two parts: income from services versus, that's Lucas Vieiro, income from property, Elbring v. Forrest. Once we finish that, we've been spending the last two classes in their entirety examining business deductions, right? And we looked at what's deductible under Code Section 162, and as I suggested to you, the authors unpackaged Code Section 162. How do they unpackage it? They look at what is ordinary and necessary, and have the famous Wells v. Halpern case, and what might be extraordinary expenses. Then we looked on carrying on a trade or business in the so-called Morgan Frank case, and then we looked at 162A, 1, 2, and 3, right? Dealing with deductions for reasonable salaries, dealing with deductions for travel expenses, and looking at or examining expenses associated with the payment of leases. All right, so we looked at all those expenses. We also compared and contrast business deduction expenses with those expenses which have to be capitalized, right, under Code Section 263, versus those expenses which are personal in nature and hence non-deductible under Code Section 262. All right, so hopefully you get this general framework. And within that general framework, the author has introduced us, say, to educational expenses, which aren't even delineated in the code, but Regulation 162-5 enumerates those expenses which can be deductible if they're designed to improve your skills or keep you employed, versus those that are not deductible, minimum educational expenses, okay, that you incur to be able to get a particular position. That brings us up, and I want to make sure we have enough time, to the last segment of Chapter 14, dealing with depreciation deductions. So let me just take a pause. Here's our agenda. You know that so we left off essentially, if I'm not mistaken, on page 394, correct? So my charge tonight, your charge tonight, our mutual charge together, is to get a good handle on the topic of depreciation. If things fall into place, for our next class, we will read the next chapter, okay, just to give you a little heads up. Chapter 15 for next class, and the first 10 or so pages on chapter 19. Okay, chapter 19 is our last leg together, and I think we can comfortably finish chapter 15 during class, next class, as well as chapter 19. not the entirety of chapter 19, just the first few pages, chapter 19, all right? So we're good. We know what today has in store. We know what the next 2 weeks has in store. Right? Try to keep the energy level high, because if you look at your calendar, we have 2 more classes before the exam. All right? So now's the time to start on really pedaling hard and pedaling fast to make sure you have a good comprehension of the course. Also bear in mind that the exam is cumulative, albeit more heavily weighted towards the second half of the course. All right? But if you have any questions, problems, or concerns, I'll be available by email.
When's the final?
Final, I believe, is December 3rd. Someone check me. Is that a Monday?
Sure.
Okay, that Monday. Right? Okay. So let's talk about depreciation. Now, let's just bear in mind that when we talk about depreciation, EK, what kind of assets are these?
You can compare business.
I'm sorry?
It's personal property or real property you can compare business or for a profit motive.
All right, but let me just ask EK, is there a code section that might go along with that description? Before you get there. Brian? Code section or Dan? 1231, right? These are 1231 assets. 1231 assets are depreciable assets, right? And EK, I wholeheartedly support when you think 1231, your brain might even fire ahead and say 1245, but first say 1231, and then if you don't mind closing the loop, 1245 and 1250, right? Everyone agree? So, and conceptually, why is there this notion of depreciation to begin with, Leo? Why has Congress instituted this whole system? On what basis is it about, Leo?
Well, so you can like take deductions on like if you're using like an asset in like the trader business, you take away from that like year by year.
Yeah, but why? Why not allow people to just expense it all up front?
Well, because that would mean like people could take massive deductions in like 1 year, so it kind of spans it out over.
But why span it out over multiple years? What's the philosophy?
I'm not too sure.
Right?
Because the incomes earned over multiple years.
So it's this concept of matching, right? Everyone agree? That there's depreciation schedules because when you make a purchase, right, of this 1231 asset, there's an expectation that asset is going to be used multiple years. And over those courses of multiple years, it's going to produce income, right? And to accurately reflect the income, if you expense it all the first year, it would be misleading. It would show potentially that you have a loss. In the later years, you would show excess income. But by going through a depreciation schedule, it's supposed to depict more accurately the income that particular asset is generating, right? So the authors introduce us to this concept of matching on the first few pages. Okay, just talking about matching, and just to add to your repertoire, guys, of acronyms, just to make sure, Nick, if I say MAKERS, what does MAKERS stand for?
Modified Accelerated Cost Recovery System.
Okay, there you go. Modified Accelerated Cost Recovery System, which is in contrast to so-called ACRES. Because, just so you know, it used to be, in 1980, 1981, Ronald Reagan was president. He instituted accelerated cost recovery system. It was costing the Treasury way too much money. So even Ronald Reagan, retroactive in 1981, had to pull back the reins and make it into a modified system. Because the allowable deductions were too aggressive. Okay? Now, it can't hurt for us to go through Code Section 168 and go, if you're going to open up to Code Section 168, and flip pages here. Section 168 says, 168A, says that for there to be depreciation, 3 items have to be met. You have to know the applicable depreciation method, the applicable recovery period, and the applicable convention. But those are not self-defining terms. And if you remember Code Section 132, which dealt with fringe benefits, 132A gives a whole series of excludable fringe benefits, but then, if you remember, from several weeks ago, several months ago, 132B, 132C, 132D, 132E, they all elaborate, right, what 132A says. And the code follows that pattern throughout. This is not unique. And 168A is kind of obscure. So by looking below in our reading, we understand what is the applicable depreciation method. First, except as provided in paragraphs 2 and 3, the most popular method of depreciation is 200% double declining balance. 200% declining balance method. And then you switch to straight line the first year, for which the straight line method will yield a bigger deduction than double declining. And with respect to property which is so-called 15 or 20-year property, use the 150% method. And you treat salvage value as if it were 0. That's B4. I skipped, I should have pointed out to you. So we have 200% double declining, 150% for 15 and 20-year property, and we have straight line with respect to real estate. That's B3. B3, that would use the straight line method for real estate. B4, salvage value is treated as 0. B5, you can elect the straight line method if you choose. Clear, Graham?
And if you don't elect, it'll be a straight, if you don't elect, like the specific depreciation, your default is straight line, right?
No. It's 200% double declining.
Okay.
And real estate, you have to use straight line. There's no option. And 15 and 20-year property, by default, it's 150% unless you elect straight line.
What would deem a 15 to 20-year property is that? Just
Maybe, I'd have to look it up, like an elevator, maybe a 15 or 20-year property, may or no. All right, I don't know it offhand. Let me just say this, because that dovetails with what I was about to say to you. If you look at 168C, it tells you the recovery period for different property year. And you can't understand 168C without looking at 168E. If you look at 168E, it says property shall be classified under the following table. And if you look, if property has a class life of, and it gives you different class lives, and it tells you how to treat the property. And for exam purposes, Andrew, I will tell you the class life of property. You do not, during the exam, have to research that. So if I give you the class life, everyone here should know what the recovery period is. Because again, using the chart on Code Section 168E. You see that chart, 168E? If I give you the class life, you should know the recovery period. Right, so we now know 2 out of the 3 items. The third item is the one that students, my experience, are most apt to make errors. It's the so-called applicable convention. Let's look at these conventions. Now, conventions, this is not like Baskin Robbins. There's only 4 flavors. All right? 4 flavors. So everyone's got to be able to get these 4 flavors down. Flavor, the most popular flavor is what? Half-year convention, okay? Half-year convention. Okay? So when in doubt, use the half-year convention. In the case of real property, Carla, what is it? I don't know. Elizabeth? Real property, what convention? What? No, I'm talking about the convention, not the method. Julia? Jacqueline?
Is it, mid-quarter,
Not the mid-quarter.
mid-month?
Mid-month. So my question then becomes, Trevor, we got half-year convention, we got the mid-month convention. And Jacqueline alluded to the mid-quarter convention. When do you use the mid-quarter convention? Ben? Francis? Kim? Mid-quarter convention?
When you would put it in place any particular quarter?
Say again, say it
In a
loudly.
particular- when you put something in place on service in a particular quarter?
But you gotta explain more. Let me ask Angel and Matt at the very top of the memo. Guys, when do you use the mid-quarter convention?
We use mid-quarter if more than 40% of the value of properties, other than real estate, is placed into service in the last quarter of the year.
Yeah. What's your authority for that?
Your handout.
Right. But that's spelled out. Is the, if you look at 168D3. D3, more than 40% placed into service. All right, Mike, you've been chomping at the bits, so go ahead. What's the last convention, Mike? It's a little bit pitted. Not sure? Rudy, have an idea? Anyone volunteer? Any convention that it's not right here jumping off?
4 months?
Who said it, Jacqueline?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
That's, intangible property, 4 months?
Full month, intangible property. What's your authority? What's section 197? Right?
I thought that was if it was, acquired intangibles.
It is. But that's the only time you get to amortize anyway.
Full month with 15 interest rate.
So we have 4 conventions. Let's summarize. Half-year convention, mid-month convention, mid-quarter convention, full month convention. You gotta know those. You will be tested on them. The computer does it automatically usually for you, but you gotta be able to explain to the client why they're not getting what they anticipate getting in terms of deductions. Okay? Now, here's another tricky part. Whatever convention you use when you acquire a property, you've gotta use the same convention when you sell the property. I'll repeat. Whatever convention you use to acquire a particular property is the same convention you must use when you sell the property. So if you use the mid-quarter convention, because you have to, when you sell the property, you must use the same convention. And for some people, I'm not saying all, but for some of you, you're thinking to yourself, let me fill this in. What is he talking about? Okay, I get it. Some of you are getting it, but that's okay. So, just to make sure everyone's with me, because I want to go through 1 or 2 examples. So, everyone had that handout I gave last class, and some of you picked it up this class. Let's talk in general about depreciation deductions. And we have a company that acquires 5-year class property in 2017. And again, I would supply this to you. And they acquired 3 different pieces of property. Everyone see that? What kind of property is this? Thank you, it's 1231 property, right? Right. 80K? And we want to know how much depreciation deductions they're going to get. Now, normally the half-year convention would apply. So just take a step back, use your imagination. Suppose they only acquired one property, the February 15th property, okay? Don't say it out loud, pretend it's an exam, take 1 minute. Tell me what the depreciation deduction would have been if they only acquired one piece of property, February 15th. Just come up with a number. What you say the depreciation deduction should be. And then we'll pretend it. Take 20 more seconds. I need a depreciation number for that. Now let's just go down the row. Jane, you got a number?
No, not.
Not yet, Patrick?
I wanna say 40%?
No, I need a dollar amount. What's the
Amount, then
depreciation?
Come back and.
Have it? Jane?
I think first you can take 50% of bonus.
Say again?
I think first you can take 50% of bonus on that 200.
You just give me a number.
I need to think.
Is it
20,000.
20,000? Okay. Alvin, what do you say?
40,000?
Angel?
40,000?
Matt? Frank?
20.
Alright. Let's just think about this. We require $200,000 worth of properties 5-year. Normally, how much is the depreciation of 5-year property? It's 1/5, right? Everyone agree? Because it's straight line. But it's times 2 because it's double declining, right? So it's 2/5. 2/5, last I checked, is 40%. But dang, it's 40% times 1/2 because they have year convention, right? Everyone agree? So because they have year convention, it would be 20% of 200,000 or 40,000, right? Leo, you look surprised. You're whispering.
No, I didn't.
You're not surprised.
No, I am, I'm just sitting and follow that.
All right, everyone, agree? It's 1/5 times 2 times 1/2 times 200,000. Everyone agree? Nothing special. Sarah, you got it?
Yeah, I was just wondering where you got the two from, but it's because it's double declining,
Where to get the what
right?
from?
The two from, it's because it's double declining.
Yeah, it's because it's double decline. All right, any other, everybody got this, right?
Where's the half?
Annie, you got it? Joe?
Where's the one half come from?
Half year convention. All right, and Joe, you're not alone. 20 to 30% of you will put a little damper on my vacation, my holiday. I want everyone here, I want 100%. The future of my holiday rests in your hands. I need you guys to excel. Don't, Joe, I'm saying this to you and everyone else, get that right. Don't forget the convention. Matt?
Are we to assume if it's not otherwise stated to always go with the double declining balance?
Yeah, I mean, that's for this kind of property. Now, that was an easy one. Let's suppose they acquired 3 pieces of property, right? Which they did in my example. Does the half-year convention apply to the mid-quarter? We know the full month doesn't apply. This is not intangible property, okay? We know the mid-month convention doesn't apply, right? Because it's not real property, right? So we're left with the mid-quarter convention or the half-year convention. Does the mid-quarter convention apply here? Mike?
Yeah.
You can say, hell yeah, okay? Why? Because we know 50% was acquired the last quarter, right? Now, let me also, I told you I'm very good with holding up fingers like we were in grade school. Go ahead.
Are we keeping this calendar based? We're not confusing with just the our fiscal.
Yeah, I think we're gonna go with the calendar.
Okay.
All right. Can I ask you, what else could we go with?
A calendar based company, you have to figure it out differently.
Let's call me old fashioned, we're gonna go with the calendar.
Alright, thank you.
All right? And here's this, let me give you a little secret here. We know what's the denominator gonna be when we apply the mid-quarter convention? It's always gonna be 12. I'll let you in on the secret, okay? Okay? As in 12 months. All right, so everyone following me? The only question is, the numerator is just like conventions. The numerator is gonna come in 4 flavors. Do you know what those 4 flavors are going to be, Ron? David, you know what the 4 flavors are? Spell it out here. I even put it in a bowl. Everyone see? Trying to make life easy. You guys are making it harder on yourselves. Andrew, other Andrew. You with the numerators? Andrew? Andrew, do you see the numerators? Mike?
It's the 10.5, the 7.5, 4.5, and 1.5.
There you go. You gotta be one of those 4 numbers, guys, right? All right. So I've let you in on all my secrets, guys. Not quite all, but there you go. Tax secrets. Having said that, let's do it. Can everyone come up with how these numbers were derived? The 2017 depreciation deductions and the 2018. So take 2 minutes, see if you can come up with those numbers yourselves. We have the 2017 numbers. Trevor, you got it? First one? David? Nick?
What, February 15th talking?
Yep.
70,000?
That we knew. How did you get it?
5-year class, so 40,000,
I think
multiplied
you
by
mean by 40%, right?
40%, yeah.
Times what?
Times 2 for the double decline and balance method.
You already did that. That's how you got 40%, right there? I mean,
Okay,
it's
yeah,
normally
yeah.
20%, that's why we got,
And then multiplied by 10.5 over 12.
by the convention, right? Right, Julia, how do you think we got 60,000? Jacqueline? Jacqueline, you're not sure?
No.
Corey? Corey, was that a yes or a no? Matt?
I can't give an answer yet.
Andrew? Andrew, behind you, Andrew. Not sure? Sarah? Kathy? Rudy?
It's 400,000 times 40% times 4.5 divided by 12.
Yeah. Guys, this is not complicated. You're gonna be a little nervous, a little nervous. Let's put into service the third quarter, so you use 4.5 over 12.
Where is that coming from? The 4.5?
It was put into service in the third quarter, right? So we have a choice, 10.5, 7.5, 4.5, or 1.5, right? We're told to use the mid-quarter, right? You're not gonna see it in the code, man.
Oh, okay. It's not listed anywhere?
No, because think about it, 4.5 represents the exact middle of that, right? If you have 12 months, isn't 4.5 the exact middle of the third quarter?
Oh. Okay, yeah.
You got it?
So this whole problem is the Misquoter Convention?
Yeah, because once you put, what Congress doesn't want people to do is buy all their properties December 31st and try to claim a half year's worth of depreciation, right? Everybody agree? That's what Congress doesn't want folks to get away with. So Matt G, what about the last property, the 600,000? What are we multiplying?
40% for the double declining in the first year, times 1.5 over 12.
Okay, you guys are on a roll now. All right, let's take a look at 2018. I gave you the answers. Figure out how I got them. Take a minute. Brian, you got a number?
Oh, yeah. So you take the 200 minus the 70 from the first part, so you get 130, and you multiply that by 0.4, and that's your.
Right, because it's double declining, right? So you gotta take the adjusted basis, which is no longer 200,000, it's 130. Carla, what do you think you do with the next property?
I don't know.
I'm sure, Michael?
So same thing, 400,000 minus the 60,000.
Vikram, what do you think you do with the last property? Bill?
So same analogy, 600 minus the 30. Yeah, times 4.
Yep.
So here you're not doing the times over 12 because it's a full year's depreciation.
It's full year. You don't apply convention in the year, you don't, you're just normal depreciation. Now here's, I don't know, I want to, third part. Assume the $400,000 property is sold in 2018. It's sold November 30th of 2018. Tell me how we got I just want to know one number, the one that pertains to the $400,000 property. Tell me what the depreciation should be in 2018 for that one property. We know what it is in 2017. What is it in 2018? I can tell you the answer, but how did I get it? Okay? The answer is 119,000. How'd you get it? Dan?
The 340,000
Okay, 340,000
times 0.4
times 0.4,
times 10.5 over 12.
10.5 over 12. Now, why did you use 10.5 over 12?
It's the same that we use for when we
Yeah, in other words, we use the mid-quarter convention going in, right? We use the mid-quarter convention going in. We have to use the mid-quarter convention going out, right? In the year of sale, we have to use the mid-quarter convention, right? And since Andrew was sold in the last quarter, right, we're going to use 10.5 over 12. If it had been sold in January, we would have used 1.5 over 12, right? And notice that the conventions flip, right? In the year of sale, in the year of purchase, notice when it's purchased in the first quarter, right? When it's purchased in the first quarter, the numerator is 10.5 over 12. Everyone agree? But if it's sold in the first quarter, if this, then the numerator would have been 1.5 over 12. So if it had been purchased in February and sold the next February, okay, we would have used 1.5, excuse me, the original one would have been 10.5, and then when we sold it, it would be 1.5. Right?
Professor, I have a doubt. As
is your question, if this had been sold on July 10th?
That's what it says here, July 10, wasn't
Right,
it?
yeah.
So why 10.5 instead of 7.5 or 4.5
You know what?
on the
Should be.
simulator?
Correct me if I'm wrong. The $400,000 property was sold,
November 30th.
it was sold November 30th. That's, the July 10th is just referring to
Okay,
the property. It was sold in November, that's why we're using 10.5 our result.
thank you.
Rudy?
So what if you purchase in the second quarter, it would be,
Purchase
I
in
mean,
the sec-
if you sell it, the property you purchase in the second quarter, it would be 4.5?
Yeah. Joe?
So, you just need to be a day in or a day before the quarter?
Yep, whatever it is, whatever quarter you're in, you're in. The law of averages will play itself out. Daniel?
So for the property, purchased and the sale at the same quarter, then you don't count the depreciation.
I don't think I agree, but I'm not sure if I understand your question.
So, because it happens in the practice, right? Like if you acquire the assets and then you dispose, you sell them.
Nate, let's go slowly. Give me, what month are you acquiring it in?
Let's say if you acquire them in like January of 2018, and you dispose them, let's say March. So
The same year?
Yeah, same year.
Don't worry about that. That never comes up in practice. You have it come up, Nate? Right, because I'm not gonna ask any questions on that, because most people, if they're gonna go through the exercise of acquiring property, usually the transaction costs are so high, they're not selling it 2 months later. Right, but don't look for that on the exam. Alright, so these are conventions, right, guys? You have 4 of them. Make sure, I don't want you to, leave here saying, oh, that was a trick question, he asked us about conventions. It's not a trick. Conventions come up all the time. Anytime taxpayers acquire property, there's always a convention. All right? So, let me just say, or keep going here, we have all the different conventions. 168E is the classification of property. Okay, so you can see what is residential versus what is commercial property. Residential, 80% or more of the gross rental incomes come from individual dwelling units. Non-residential is anything else? Yeah, I will supply class life to people. Dealing with code section 168G. 168G supplies what is called the alternate depreciation method. And with the alternate depreciation method, 2 things happen. You have to use straight line depreciation. You've got to use straight line depreciation. And in addition, aside from straight line depreciation, you've got to use class life. Class life is usually longer than the recovery period. So 2 different things happen. You've got to use class life and you have to use straight line. You might say, well, who would ever use the alternate depreciation method? Fair question. Sometimes you're required to use the alternate depreciation method. When you guys deal with corporate tax, code section 312, dealing with earnings and computation of earnings and profits, code section 312 requires that you use the alternate depreciation method. So sometimes it's not by choice. Right. Now I'm going to clue you into something else that's important for our purposes. Code section 168K. Code section 168K. allows accelerated depreciation, allows section 168K, allows 100% expensing for all property which is not real estate. I repeat. It essentially applies to any property other than real property with a recovery period of 20 years or less. So essentially, all property. And what does that mean? If you look at code section 168K6, the percentage is 100%. What this means is that your clients can essentially write off all their acquisitions until the year 2023. This is a very expensive provision to the U.S. Treasury Department. Very expensive. Is it sustainable? I don't personally think so, but add it to my list of many things that I may be wrong about. But in my opinion, this is because I think it's unsustainable. Many tax academics don't think it's sustainable. For the exam, I could just ask you 10 questions about depreciation in all 10 or 9 out of 10. It doesn't apply to real estate, so 9 out of 10 you might just say, oh, they can expense the entire thing. But because I want you to really understand and know this stuff, because I think this will not be around for long, code section 168K, I will write in the exam question, assuming the taxpayer elects out of code section 168K, which they're at liberty to do, proceed ahead and compute the depreciation deduction. So, in other words, they will elect out, and the normal depreciation rules will apply under SolidWorks, okay? And I'm not doing that just to be a pain in the neck. I'm doing it because I really do think you guys should know how to depreciate property, because I don't think this is gonna be around for long. I think we're gonna see that the deficit, as we know, is hemorrhaging as is, and that Congress cannot afford to keep this provision. Even if I'm dead wrong, depreciation beginning the year 2023 comes back into existence anyway. So, this knowledge will not go unused, okay, guys? So I just want to point out, code section 168K does provide this immediate expensing, but periodically check to make sure it's still there. Yeah.
So that's for all property other than real estate?
Essentially, any property with a class life of 20 years or less, which pretty much is any property. Now we're going to see there are some limitations with so-called listed property, that's section 280F. We're going to talk about that after the break, but generally, yes.
Why would the taxpayer elect out of that?
They wouldn't in normal world.
All right, yeah.
Normal world, they wouldn't. Unless they had expiring NOLs and they wanted a slower depreciation schedule for some reason, but it would not be the norm. Other question? Dan?
Is that the way we should expect all depreciation questions to be?
Yeah. Okay. Dan asked, for those in the back, can you expect it? I will ask several depreciation questions, I am sure. And you guys have to just make sure that you know how to depreciate property. It's one of those things when you leave this course, everyone here should have a good handle on how property is depreciated.
168G is the only one where you use class life, right?
168G is the only one you use class. So anyway, guys, if you flip pages, the authors talk about depreciation amounts, depreciation methods. We're talking about the relationship of depreciation to basis. You guys know that? How do you know that? Code section 1016, right? That anytime there's a deduction, depreciation deduction, we adjust basis, right? The authors then talk about modified accelerated cost recovery, MACRS, which we know what MACRS stands for, right? And the authors discuss recovery periods, which again, I would supply you with class life. We're told to disregard salvage value. We know what the various depreciation methods are. We know what the conventions are. Just to point out on page 403, I'm not going to hold you accountable for it. At the very top of the page are so-called anti-churning rules. Anti-churning rules should not surprise anyone in this room. If you sell property to a related party, you cannot do so in a manner that the related party will get accelerated depreciation deductions. Okay? So you cannot sell property. First of all, you've got to worry about code section 1239. But putting that issue aside, whoever purchases the property, if they're related to you, cannot use any more accelerated method than you are using yourself. So if you bought a property, say in 2016, and you're depreciating it over 10 years, you can't sell it to your brother, okay, who then immediately expenses it under code section 168K. What's fascinating to me about 168K, among other things, every time Congress has instituted code section 168K, it's only been with respect to new property, right? We're supposed to juice up the economy. You can only apply it so that it's supposed to cause manufacturing of equipment, plant and equipment. This is the first time code section 168K extends to both new and used property. So it's, again, a very expensive provision because it extends not only to new property, it extends to the purchase of used property. But you cannot avail yourself of it if you're a related party. We've said this time and time again, I say it out loud to you to remind myself. Any transactions with related parties, your antenna should go up. And be circumspect. Does the code permit it? You don't have to worry about depletion. As I checked in New Jersey, not too many gas wells out there. But the concept is the same. Which brings us to the Sharp case. Okay? Nice case. Okay? Not too hard to follow. Patrick, did you have a chance to read this?
I did.
That was a yes?
Yes.
So, want to tell us about it?
So it was a partnership that bought a plane that was, I think, had 75% used for personal use and 25% for business use.
All right, everyone have the visual?
I think it's like 26.3.
Don't worry, I'll go with your numbers. So, 3/4 the time, this property is used for personal, 1/4 of the time for business, okay? And the purchase price, if you recall, with improvements, was $54,000 approximately, okay? $54,000. And the taxpayer, because at least a portion of it was used in business, took depreciation deductions, right, Patrick?
Yes.
How much were the depreciation deductions?
About $13,000.
Okay. So, just so we all can follow, the purchase price was $254.73. I can read my own handwriting, 50, and took depreciation deductions, 13,777, 92, and of course I got the wrong marker here. And we know that causes a new adjusted basis of $40,495.58. And the plane is sold, right, Patrick?
Yes, they sold it for $35,000.
35,000.
And, yeah.
380. And this is under code section 1001. This is amount realized under code section 1001. And did the taxpayers, do you recall if they took their loss or not, Patrick?
I thought they weren't arguing that they can take a loss, they were just arguing that they couldn't take a gain.
Yeah, by the way, your antenna, speaking of antenna going up, anytime a taxpayer doesn't take a loss, scratch your chin a bit and say, gee, there might be something suspect going on here, because most taxpayers I know and their advisors don't take losses when they think there may be a greater exposure to gain. Like they don't want to be, they want to go right under the radar screen, if you know what I mean. Okay? If you recall, that's what happened in Tufts when they walked away from the property. So anytime there's a potential loss and taxpayers walk away, just wonder. And what does the IRS say, Patrick? Are they signing on to this?
I think they said, since they sort of split it up with depreciation, with the depreciation costs, they gotta split up the plane into like 2 sales.
Well, they gotta treat this as 2 planes, right? A business plane and a personal plane. So the business plane, right, is upon which they took depreciation deductions. You can't take depreciation, right? On a personal, like a home, you can't take depreciation deductions. And when they sell it, they have to allocate the sales price $75.25, right? Makes sense? So they took the $35,000, allocating 25% to the business use, and they allocate 75% essentially to the non-business use. So this is the adjusted basis, amount realized, and gain here is about 8,800. Who wins, Patrick?
The court, I mean, the town, the commissioner.
The House always wins, right? The commissioner wins, right? Patrick, what happens to this loss?
It's non-deductible.
Why?
It's person.
What code section?
262?
Yep. And then Patrick, get a bonus point here. What's the character of the game?
Want to say long-term?
Say whatever you want, and then Matt's going to see if he agrees or disagrees.
Let's say, actually, no. Under 1245 would be ordinary income, we captured. No? Alright.
Well, I hear a lot of different things, but I think Patrick, the second Patrick I agree with, not the first Patrick. And that's a common mistake. Everyone's enthusiastic, like, oh wow, the gains exceed the losses and it's capital gain. But no, it's not. Got recapture income. Everybody agree?
Yes. Don't
forget, even though we're not studying character, right, Joan? don't forget recapture income. Don't forget everything we learned the first half of the semester. Make sure when you leave this class, you don't forget 1245, 1250. All right, everyone got that? Just want to point out, question? No, is that, for those who made it, Friday night was quite an interesting lecture on Code Section 189A and qualified enterprise zones, Code Section 1400Z. So that was interesting, and then it was interesting the hypnotist who came. So if you didn't make it this year, maybe next year you guys will make it to the tax event. I think Patrick, our guest speaker, Chet Walker, was so excited that he left his classes here, and I think Patrick, you're on a mission, can come up here to collect these. That would be great. He gave a lecture, but he had left his classes here, so Patrick was charged with delivering these to Professor Falk. Anyone do anything? I know you can't top that, but did anyone do anything else this weekend? I guess no one can top Code Section 189A. I did go to what was, it's billed as the top vegan restaurant in New York City. And supposedly Paul McCartney is a regular there, for those who are former Beatles fans. Called Candle 79. It's in New York, it's on 79th in Lexington. Candle 79. And I have to say, it's very creative. Some of it, I'm not vegan, but it's a very creative restaurant and a lot of very interesting dishes. And it's not over the top expensive by New York standards. So if you want an interesting dinner, you may consider going there. You may meet some celebrities. No one else did anything this weekend? No movies to report or anything? I did see, when I was in New York, the Broadway show Cher, which sometimes you want to trade your life, you think you do, for fame and fortune. When you read about or listen to or learn about some of these people's lives, like, thank you, but no thank you. Wow, what a tough life that woman has lived. All right, chapter 14, we got the case of the split claim, right? And I just want to call to your attention, on page 406, you know how we had talked about holding periods, right? Under Code Section 1223, we had a discussion about holding periods. You vaguely remember when we were talking about character of income. And if you look on page 406, and if you look at the second paragraph towards the bottom, 5 or 6 lines up from the bottom, you remember we had talked about a case where the house was half complete, and then they finished the house and they sold it. Well, if you look up, here's Paul the commissioner. And Paul, the taxpayer, who was in the business of holding rental property for investment purposes, bought a partially completed apartment in May, which he sold more than 6 months later, which at the time, 6 months, it wasn't 1 year under Code Section 1222. The issue was whether the taxpayer could treat the entire gain or any part thereof as a long-term capital gain. The court held that a portion of the gain must be allocated to the building erected more than 6 months before, and given the long-term treatment, the remainder applicable to the construction between May and November. It was that this short-term. The reason I'm calling that to your attention is this court, in this case, right, Patrick? It's kind of creative, right? That they're taking one asset and viewing it as 2 separate assets, 2 different planes. But if you read the case, and this is what courts are known to do, is use the concept of stare decisis. Look at prior cases where something similar has been done. In this case, in Paul v. Commissioner, right? That court, the Third Circuit, which, by the way, we're in the Third Circuit, if you didn't know, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Third Circuit. Where does that court meet? In Philadelphia, right? This is not the first time a court has looked at something and said, gee, maybe the more appropriate way is to look at it as two separate assets, right? All right. So you can read about that and hopefully feel comfortable. I think it's a nice case. Any musicians in the crowd? Andrew, what do you play?
Guitar, drums, bass,
Wow, look at this.
sing a little bit, but
I didn't need to hire an entertainer Friday night.
no,
Next time, let us know. You can do a number.
it's not.
We did have one of our students, current students, did a little bit of her comedy act. She's a stand-up comedian. So Andrew, just remind me next time we can have you do a song or two. You're gonna be like Brad Cooper. I'm gonna have to. You're gonna.
I think I'm better than him, but, you know.
That's okay.
I think he was just acting in that movie and, you know, he got by, right? We're talking about Bradley Cooper, right?
Right. I'm talking about Bradley
You
Cooper.
did it right. I liked it. It was good.
Supposedly he self-taught him just for the movie.
That's what he says.
Do we have any women singers? Because now we can get, with Andrew, we can get a duo here. We'll have Lady Gaga equivalent, and there you go. We'll start singing Shallow, right, Andrew? There you go. Andrew, did you read the signing case?
No, I did not.
Rats! See, it all had to do with a musical instrument. You would have enjoyed reading it. Mike, I can't give this case to you unless you play a musical instrument.
I used to play a violin many.
All right, well, then you qualify if you play the piano, violin, excuse me, okay? So, Michael used to play the violin, probably not using the bows used here, right, Michael?
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens here, Michael?
So there's a musician who purchases some very expensive bows for his violins. They came from some special manufacturer. He is a musician. He's in some Philharmonic. He tried to take, or he did take a depreciation deduction on the bows because he said, I think he bought there was two bows. I think one was $40,000, one was something less than that. So we took a depreciation deduction. The IRS said they didn't think we should do it.
Why did the IRS say you should not be able to take depreciation deductions?
Oh, because there was no, as far as the life was concerned, they said there was no definitive life to it.
Right, because these bows, I'm not in this world, the musicians out there, these bows had no useful life insofar as they retained their value. Okay, everyone got that? Even though they were playing, even though the musicians used them, and as a result of using them, they were subject to wear and tear. Okay, everyone agree? These bows were subject to wear and tear. No ifs, buts, or maybes about that. They were subject to wear and tear. But their value did not decline. Usually, right, don't you associate depreciation deductions with a decline in the economic value of the property, right? If you buy an antique car and keep it in a museum, can you get depreciation deductions? No, because there's no wear and tear. Here, there's no useful, and also there's no useful life. Here, there's no useful life, there is wear and tear. What does the court hold, notwithstanding that there is no useful life, Michael?
The court disagreed with the commissioner in this case, and they said it doesn't matter, even though there is no definitive life, he should still be able to take depreciation. Because there is wear and tear, and that was more important.
Yeah, the court looks at the legislative history, public policy, goes through a whole routine, and says, you know what, Congress tried when it instituted makers to simplify the depreciation system and downplayed the importance of a useful life and emphasized much more that something simply be subject to wear and tear. So the court said in this particular instance, you can get depreciation deductions for using the bows. Okay? So you can read the dissent. It's interesting. But it's not a controversial case, it's not a case that comes up all the time. There's a problem on page 417. It should ring of familiarity. Section 263 provides no deductions will be allowed for any amount paid for new buildings. Thus, if one pays for salaries or painting, etc., the construction of a new building, the expenses are capitalized, and the total cost of the building is then depreciated, assuming 167 or 168 requirements are met. If the company owns trucks that are used during the year exclusively in constructing a new storage plant for the company, is the company allowed to take depreciation deductions for the trucks during the year? Consider what alternative tax alternatives there might be. And if you recall, I had discussed a raise with you, Commissioner B, Idaho Power Company. And if you recall, the takeaway of that case is to put taxpayers who self-construct assets versus those who hire someone to construct on an even playing field. So what that means is that the depreciation deductions must be capitalized. So if you recall my example of having one of those mammoth dump trucks and the depreciation deductions associated with that dump truck that cost $1 million, coincidentally happened to be $100,000 for that year, you could not deduct that $100,000. It had to be capitalized and then depreciated over 27.5 or 39 years, depending if it was residential or commercial property. All right, why? Again, trying to put people who self-construct assets versus those who purchase assets in the same playing field. All right, so we already discussed that case, that's nothing new. Everyone good with that? So if you self-construct assets, you have to capitalize those costs and take it over the useful life of whatever that self-constructed asset is. Are interest on loans connected with property and taxes on property which are paid during the construction period currently deductible? In code section 263, capital letter A, not surprisingly, says that those costs must be capitalized. Okay? Those costs must be capitalized. Okay, beginning on page 418, there is a discussion of depreciation and amortization rules for personal property. And again, I'm just calling to your attention on the top of page 419, there's a short one-paragraph discussion about code section 168K. 168K is this depreciation allowance currently 100%. The authors then, beginning on page 419, discuss code section 168. On page 420, they provide a little chart here. I just want to call to your attention that if you look, page 420 begins a discussion of someone purchasing $80,000 worth of equipment, okay? $80,000 worth of equipment under code section 1231. Notice, under 200%, straight line and alternate depreciation, there's one commonality that applies to all three. There's one commonality that applies to all three of those charts. Well, some people might say two commonalities, but you might think I'm being cryptic, but what's my point? Is that the depreciation deductions in each are going to be $80,000 in all three. Okay, agreed? And the adjusted basis at the end is going to be 0, right? So you might say, well, that makes everyone should be agnostic, right? Because You can't believe in 1, 2, or 3, because at the end of the day, you get to the same finish line. But taxpayers are not ignored. Your clients, when in doubt, will opt for the first, not the second or the third. Why? Mike?
Time value of money.
Time value of money, right? Clients much prefer deductions sooner rather than later. Because a deduction today is worth more, $1 that you conduct today, depending on interest rates, is worth a lot more, or can be worth a lot more, than $1 deducted 5 years from now, right? Because of time value of money concepts. So taxpayers will twist your arm and say, can you accelerate the deduction? So part of your goal line here will be when, if at all, there's going to be opportunities to accelerate deductions. So the authors on page 421 have in italics entitled section 168K additional depreciation. It says, in an effort to stimulate a sagging economy and query whether with unemployment this low and at the precipice of inflation, is this the right thing to do? Code section 168K, but no one elected me to office. Congress has added an extra depreciation deductions on most types of new and used. Again, very unusual that the word used here. And you see that there's a window of opportunity here. Now, go ahead, Ben.
I'm just gonna ask you said they put it back in 168K? Is it common they take it out, put it back in?
It's been, over the last 10 years, Congress has had 168K giving often 50% for new equipment. And it was always supposed to gradually be phased out, but then Congress will come back and say, well, the economy's sagging, let's keep it at 50%. It's never been at 100% then. Okay? Never applied to used property. All right, now, in yesteryear, but I still think it's important because this may come up, Congress had, in addition, so certainly 168K is a pro-taxpayer provision. Code section 179 used to be the go-to provision for small businesses. 179 used to allow much smaller dollar amounts of depreciation. But right now, for the time being, Code section 168K nullifies the use of 179 because you can expense everything. Last I checked, you can't get more depreciation than your purchase price. So if you purchase something for $100,000, that's it. That's the most you can take in depreciation. You can't take $150,000 of depreciation. But in yesteryear, when small businesses used to purchase plant and equipment, depending on how much they put into service, they could deduct what was called bonus depreciation under 179. Now, right now, if you guys are like me, I used to love watching Godzilla movies. And it used to be where someone would mistakenly wake up Godzilla years later and he would, come out of the ground. 179 is going to come out of the ground, okay? 179 is going to just come back, in my opinion. So you should know about it. And right now, if you're a small business, you can elect up to $1 million of bonus depreciation. But akin to Code Section 195, if you remember Code Section 195, startup expenses, if you put more than $50,000 of startup expenses, you lose the benefit of that $5,000 immediate deduction. Similarly, if you use the $1 million bonus if you put into service more than $2.5 million worth of property, then for every dollar above 2.5, you lose $1 of the accelerated depreciation deduction. So if you put $2.7 million of property into service, you can only expense $800,000. and the balance has to be taken over the useful life of the property. But again, for the moment, this is all moot. Why is it all moot? Because taxpayers in general are gonna opt to use Code Section 168K. They don't need to rely on Code Section 179. Now, that's the good news. We have two different code sections at play, bringing happy cases to our clients, right? Of course, there's gotta be a code section that takes back and limits taxpayers. And that's found in Code Section 280F on so-called listed property. For our purposes, we can keep it simple. And we can call it listed property and limit it to automobiles. And automobiles, Code Section 280F-A puts a limit on how much depreciation taxpayers can take with respect to their automobiles. And we're going to go through an example after the break on automobiles and listed property. Now, just want to call to your attention, amortization is over 15 years. Look at page 425. Now, if you look at page 425, the last full paragraph. Under the provision, the adjust basis of any Code Section 197 intangible which is acquired by a taxpayer in connection with the conduct of a trade or business or an activity engaged in for the production of income may be amortized over a 15-year period, beginning with a month. Notice this is a full month convention, so I have the word month highlighted, in which the asset is acquired. So again, it refers to the word month. The asset must be quote-unquote acquired by the taxpayer. Thus, Section 197 is generally inapplicable to an asset that is self-created. So, Mike, that gets to your point. It must be a purchased intangible to qualify for Code Section 168, or excuse me, Code Section 197 depreciation deductions. Now, let's just set this up because I think it's important, and then we'll take a break because let's look at page 426 for a second. On January 2nd of the current year, for $300,000, depreciator purchases new equipment for use in her business. The purchase is made from an unrelated party. Now, why did the authors put this here? Why is the purchase made from an unrelated party? They do this so the so-called anti-churning rules do not apply, okay? So they're not just wasting toner here. They want you to know that the anti-churning rules do not apply. The equipment has a 6-year class life. So if you look at 6-year class life, let's just look at Code Section 168E. It has a 6-year class life. Everyone look at Code Section 168E. What is the recovery period then? How long? 5 years, right? You know what the recovery period is. It is 5 years under 168C. Depreciator plans to use the equipment for 7 years. Do we care? Do we care? No, right, Brian? We couldn't care less. Could plan to use it in 2 years, could plan to use it for 10 years. Doesn't affect the computations. and expects to have a salvage value of $30,000 at the end of that time. Do we care?
No.
Absolutely categorically not. Why? Section 168B5. Did I say that? B4, B5, let me get it right. B4, salvage value treated as 0. Depreciator is a single calendar year taxpayer and uses the equipment only in her business. That's important, right, Patrick, or else we'd have a split plane. Okay, so we're not going to bifurcate this between business and personal, 100%. Okay, so we're told compute depreciation deductions with respect to the equipment. What kind of equipment is this, guys? Code section 1231, right, EK? 1231. And when I say 1231, you should think, right, Zara, of 1245 and 1250, right? So, with respect to each, guys, each of these problems, we're going to have year, we're going to have code section, dollar amount of depreciation, and the adjusted basis, right? The adjusted basis under code section what? 1016, and the adjusted basis itself, right? 1016 saying adjustments, code section 1011, right? For the adjusted basis. So, what we're going to do, guys, is to break this, go through each one of these problems. This deals with tangible personal property, intangibles. Then we'll have a short discussion on real estate. And then there's a few more problems. So I'm hoping when we come back to do these problems, even if you're not 100% feeling comfortable, by the end of tonight you will be. How's that for optimism? All right, so why don't we take our 9-minute break? I'll see you guys back here. I'll go through some more problems where I want to address some of the concerns Annie had during the break. But let's do problem 1A. Suppose we just get 168K. Year one, how much depreciation do we get under 168K? Do we get all of it? Game over, right? Question B. Depreciator elects out of 168K, but also elects to use 179. Depreciator satisfies the 179 requirement and has no other 179 property in the year. What that means, by the way, just for our education, is this taxpayer did not place into service more than $2.5 million of property, right? Everybody agree? So under that scenario, if they elected at a 168K, or let's say Congress repeals Code Section 168K, under Code Section 179, the way, just so you know, Code Section 179, this is, we live in a strange, how do I say? Strange part of the tax law. Why? Code Section 179 for small businesses, you know how much it used to be? $25,000. That was the 179 bonus depreciation. And it was meant for small mom and pop operations. They could take up to 25, you know, they bought a new computer, right? They could, we're in a very stratospheric kind of place, so when budget deficits are running $1 trillion a year, you know where some of that money is going, because. But if you elect 179, how much depreciation deductions can you take, guys?
The whole thing.
The whole thing. Okay? So, question 1C is a good one for exam purposes. If they elected out of 168K and did not elect 179, do the full depreciation schedule, everyone. From start to finish. How much depreciation could they take over the next several years? Year 1, 2, 3, 4. Say year 6. Abbott, why did I have year 6? Why did I go, it's 5-year property, why did I put year 6? Okay? First year is only half, and what that means is year 6 will be?
The other.
Okay? So, everyone come up with your own depreciation schedule, how much depreciation taxpayer could take in each of these years. Joe, you have a puzzled look. Joe?
Yeah.
What's the problem?
No, I'm just trying to get my head out.
Okay, everyone take 2 minutes, come up with some numbers, guys. Better to make a mistake, you'll learn more from making a mistake than if you just sit there passively and not try this. If you're watching on the video, do this at home. Take 1 more minute, come up with some numbers. Take 30 more seconds. Frank, do you think you got it?
I can get you part of the way there.
Matt, you'll help him?
Try. Good shot.
All right, so give me first year.
We're saying, I was saying $60, 60K worth of depreciation with an adjusted basis of 240.
Okay, let me ask you, how did you get that?
Sure. So I took the 300.
All right,
I know that it's 1 divided by 5 for 5 years. Multiply that times 2, and then took half of that for the half-year convention.
so it ends up being 60,000.
Yeah.
Your adjusted basis becomes 240, right?
Correct.
Okay? Year 2?
So year 2, I did for my depreciation calc. I arrived at 96,000. To get that, I used the adjusted basis of 240. Multiply that by the same 1 divided by 5 times 2,
Right?
and left off the half year. So we're out of that thing.
All right, so it's 144, right?
Yep.
All right? And what?
So this is where I think I kind of go off the rails, but I did the calc for depreciation, and I got to about 57. And so this
So 144 times what?
So this is where I had a choice, and I thought since straight line method would probably, I thought this was the part where I would switch to straight line method.
Well, you would pick out whichever would yield the more, but I'm gonna tell you, this straight line would not yield more here. 40%, you still have 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 3.5 years worth of depreciation.
Yeah,
If you
so I
take
think
1
that's
over
what I got.
3.5, it's gonna be smaller than 0.4. Everyone understands straight line would be 1 year, 2 year, 3.5 year. And if you take 1 year over 3.5 of the remaining years, what's 1 over 3.5, guys? Just, I can calculate. Anyone calculate that? 1 over 3.5? It's 28%, 29%. So you still go with the 0.4. So what is 144 times 0.4, guys? Give me the exact number, 57 what?
57.6.
57,
600.
600, right? Okay, so year 4, take 144 minus 57 is how much?
86.4.
86,400. And I'm gonna tell you, 2.5 years remains, right? What's 1 over 2.5, guys? What's 1 over 2.5? Equals 0.4, right? Is 0.4 smaller than 0.4? No. So you're still using double declining. You only switch to straight line, Annie, when it yields you a better outcome. And right now, straight line would give you the same outcome, not a better outcome. So what's 86,400 times 0.4, guys? Tell me.
34,560.
By the way, I screwed this up. This should be here, 57,600. I apologize. So this number is double declining. It should be 86,400, right? Is the new adjusted basis. I apologize. So what's 0.4 times 86,400?
34,560.
34,560, right? And that leaves a basis of how much?
51,840.
How much?
51,840.
840, 51,840, right? Now, that's year 4. Now we have a year and a half, right, of depreciation left. Everyone agree? Year 5 and year 6. Now, what's our adjusted basis is 51, right? 840. But we have a choice. We can multiply it by 0.4, or under straight line, we have a year and a half left, right? A year and a half. Year 6 is a half, right? A year and a half left. What's 1 over 1.5? .67 is greater, right, Andy, than .4, so we can depreciate using the straight line method here, and dividing this by the remaining, it's under straight line, it's 1.5 years, so this is 2/3 this number, right? So it's 2/3, 51,840. Should get depreciation deduction divided by 1.5, and the depreciation deduction here is 34,560. The new basis is, what is it, 17,000, how much is it, guys?
280.
17,280, and a half year's depreciation, half year. In other words, the final year, the depreciation is 17,280, and the new adjusted basis is 0. Let me repeat. The first 4 years, we use double declining. We switch in year 5, because year 5 is the first year in which, by switching to straight line yields more depreciation than double declining, because we have 1.5 years, and it's the full year over 1.5, the remaining time period. Now, truth, computers do this for you. So you have to be able to explain to your client why the computer is coming out with particular numbers, right? You can't just say, well, I throw it in a black box and this is how it comes out. You can, but that doesn't, you're not going to ingratiate yourself to the client by saying that, right, guys? So notice, each one of these, 0.4, 0.4, 0.4, 0.4, then we switch to straight line. Andy, does that make sense? You asked third break? Joe?
In year 1, we're multiplying by half. Is that the half-year convention?
Yeah. That's the half-year convention. And here, it becomes de facto half-year convention, right?
Why is it half-year? It says January 2nd.
Okay? Because remember, it's always half-year unless you're in the Misquoter Convention, right? Joe, just hear me, because I want everyone to hear me. Don't miss out on the convention. Don't miss out on the convention. Now, let me just ask you. Suppose in year 3, don't say it out loud. In year 3, suppose the taxpayer sells this property, okay? And I ask on the exam, in year 3, how much depreciation does the taxpayer get? Don't say it out loud, just compute. How much depreciation does the taxpayer get in year 3 if the equipment is sold in year 3 on January 2nd, Joe? January 2nd of year 3, taxpayer sells the equipment.
Half of that, right?
I'm going to ask Kathy. Kathy, the taxpayer sells the equipment in year 3. How much depreciation does the taxpayer get?
So it's 144,000.
Not sure? Matt,
I wouldn't agree, no.
what would you do instead?
It'd be the half year, so it'd be 100, the number that we had, 5760 divided by 2. 28,800?
Kevin, sorry, you see, is that if you sell it in this year, all you have to do is multiply this number by 1/2, because you used a half-year convention. And what's the number? I didn't even write it down.
28,800?
28,800. Joe,
So you're at 1 day into year 3, and you can still use the half-year convention.
that's still, you're acting, that's a good thing. Yeah, you don't have a choice though. Could be January 1st, or if you sell it December 31st. What do you do, Joe?
On December 31st, then you still be year 2.
No, you sell it in year 3, December 31st of year 3. How much
You still
depreciation?
use the half-year convention, so it'd be the
Same
same
answer. Whatever convention you use going in is the same convention you use going out. So if you use the half-year convention going in, you're using the half-year convention going out, right? Everyone got that? No one's gonna get mad at me if I ask that on the final exam? But if you're a little bit wishy-washy tonight, that's okay, but focus and concentrate. And if you have questions next Monday, bring them in, beginning of class, or shoot me an email in the meantime if you're truly losing sleep on these things. All right, we're good? All right, let's go to question 1D. C above, except that depreciator elects under 168B5 to use the straight line method for the equipment and all other property placed in service in that class. So 1D. So let's do the first 2 years of depreciation here.
First 2.
First 2. Code section 168. How much depreciation? Trevor, you got? David, agree? Why, David? How'd you get that?
So I multiply 300,000 by 1/5, and apply
300,000 times 1/5
and then times 1/2.
times 1/2, because we're not double defining, and it's over a 5-year period, so the amount of depreciation equals 30,000, right? The new adjusted basis is 270. Year 2, Nick, what do you say?
60,000.
Here, why?
The same calculation except it's a full year of depreciation.
Okay, so it's 300,000 times 1/5 equals 60,000. So it'd be 210. So it's not, you're not declining the basis each year, you're taking the same amount, right? And 1 second, question 1A. CMC accept equipment as 6-year class life and depreciator likes to use the alternate depreciation system. So now using an alternate depreciation system, guys, compute the depreciation.
Professor, on the previous question,
Yep.
why did we use half on the first?
Half-year convention,
Yeah.
okay?
I thought they said the line is straight line.
It's straight line, you still use the half-year convention. Every time you put an asset in, you must use a convention,
Okay.
okay?
Professor, year 2, why are you doing 300 times 1/5?
So straight line depreciation to follow.
So how did you get $60,000? Okay, that makes sense, now.
Along my bay, right? Okay, question 1A, let's do the first 2 years. What do we know about the alternate depreciation system? What do you use as the recovery period, guys? The class life, right? You have to use class life and use straight line. What's the class life? 6 years, right? So the first year, and this is under code section 168G. So Kim, what do you have here?
I didn't do the calculation yet, but, it would have been 300,000, 50,000.
Would you agree? Dan?
Oh, you didn't have 20.
Don't have, you're ruining my holiday.
Yeah. I've got the
Don't forget the half-year convention, right? So we're gonna do what? We're gonna have 1/6 times 1/2 is 1/12, right? And 1/12 is 8 1/3. Right? So the amount of depreciation here is how much? 25,000. What's the new adjusted basis? 275. Kim, what do you think year 2 is gonna be? Depreciation.
50,000.
50,000, right? 16 2/3%.
So we can't see anything. You writing over there.
What does that do?
Can't see anything that you're writing.
You can't see with green? You use black?
Yeah.
All right, I apologize. Let me just see. All right. Two blacks, let's see. Sixteen 2/3%, right? Which is just 1/6. And what would end up happening is, over the next several years, it would be 16 2/3 all the way down until year 7. Year 7, the depreciation would be $25,000, and the adjusted basis would be 0. So 50,000 would be true for all the years, and then finally in year 7, right? Why in year 7 is there only half? Because the half-year convention, right?
So you always start in
except if you're using the Misquoter Convention. Yeah. Or if you sell it, right? And that's what students often forget, but that's not good for anyone. And professors forget too, so but that's not a good thing either. Question 1F. Depreciator purchases equipment which is used property from an unrelated party who does not elect out of Code Section 168K. And in this case, Mike, what's the answer? The whole thing. Same as 1A. Okay, same. Again, very unusual. The code has never had this before. Okay, question 1G. Let's not worry about it, but I will point out to you, question 1G says, suppose depreciator purchased the equipment from depreciator's sister. In that case, you cannot take a faster method than the sister. What's my authority? 168F5A. I'll repeat. Code section 168F5A. Okay? High roller. Buys a luxury automobile for business and personal use at a cost of $65,000 in the current year. Assuming that there's no 2018 inflation after 2018, compute the maximum depreciation deductions available to high roller. Assuming 168 applies, there's no personal use of the car. So come up with depreciation deductions. All right, so first year. How much depreciation? Nick C. What do you say?
I didn't get anything for the first.
James, do you have anything?
10,000.
10,000? Anything, Frank, you're saying 10? I see you nodding. David, other Nick? Joan, have a number? Mike? Yeah?
Me? 2,560.
And remember, they didn't like that at 168K. Francis?
The whole entire thing.
Say again?
The whole entire thing?
The whole car?
Yeah.
But keep in mind, code section 280F A applies. This is listed property. Everyone agree?
Yes.
Can't deduct the whole thing. How much can you deduct? Now also bear in mind, take a look at the code section 168K. Okay, open up to 168K. And if you look at two, let's see if I get this right. 2F. Section 2F, one little I. The purpose of section 280F, automobiles, in the case of a passenger automobile, which is qualified property, the secretary shall increase the limitation of under 280F A1A, one little I, by $8,000. Everyone see that? And then, how much can we deduct, guys? 18,000, right? Right, Francis, so we get 10,000 under code section 280FA, right? Plus we get this additional bump up,
Where are you looking at, 168K?
168K. A2F, gotta keep going, it's much further in code section 280, excuse me, code section 168K. Gotta keep reading. There's this little provision that gives a little bit of a bump with respect to listed property. So that means that our adjusted basis now would be 47,000. How much depreciation, guys, can we take in year 2? Not a trick question, guys. 16,000, right? Everyone see that? Where is it from? Code section 280F.
How did you get the 18,000?
The 10,000 plus the $8,000 bonus that code section 168K affords. So what's our adjusted basis? 31,000. Year 3, 9,600. Year 4. Each one of these years, guys, we get 5,760, 5,760, 5,760. Until year 7, we get to write off the rest.
Professor, the 19,600, so that's like 21,400?
Yeah.
Okay.
Year 6 is 4,000? 120?
Year 7 is 4,120. And that's just the, what is this gonna total, guys? $65,000, right?
Now,
All
how
right,
did you
what's
say-
the issue? Kathy, you okay?
Why is it 7 years?
You keep going until it's 100% used in business because it's listed property. And keep using it in business. This is a Silver Shadow Rolls Royce. It could take 100 years to depreciate fully, right? With the listed property, you're not allowed the luxury of getting accelerated depreciation deductions. Kim?
Why did you pick up the 5760 a year for?
Because that's what the code instructs.
Oh, right, it does say right here. I'm looking at the book, I'm not looking at the book.
Everyone have this? Go ahead.
What was the year that you needed for 16,000? The calculation for that?
The calculation is right in the code. You have code section 280F A open. You see what it says for year 2?
But the code says no more than, so you still do the calculation and.
You have to do the calculation, but I can tell you 40% of whatever the balance is going to be larger than this.
Where was the 8,000 again? I know you mentioned it for that.
Code section 280, excuse me, code section 168, K, I'm going to draw a blank, 2F. K2F.
The 168 only applies to the first year.
Only applies to the first year. Question 2, or question B, I should say. What if results to high rolling if the car is in fact used for business purposes in the following percentages? Okay? What do you do here? You add the depreciation. Well, just like the airplane, you multiply it by 0.7 times 0.8 times 0.7 times 0.6 times 0.6 times 0.6 times 0.6, right? Everyone see that? So if you have a calculator, whatever 18,000 times 0.7 would be the first year of depreciation, right guys? Carla, you got that? Everyone's good? I don't need to multiply it out, right? Whatever personal use is non-deductible. Now, I want to point something I think kind of cool out. You may not think so, but I do. If you look at code section 280F, D2. Code section 280F, D2. It's entitled Subsequent Depreciation Deductions Used for Deductions Applicable to Personal Use. Did everyone see that? Section 280F D2. Why do I call it? I think this is interesting. Is that for tax basis purposes, your basis in the property gets reduced by the full amount of depreciation, even though who figured it? What is 18,000 times 0.7, guys? Numerically, what's that answer? 12,000 what? 600. So you get $12,000, $12,600 of depreciation. But your tax basis is nevertheless reduced by the full 18,000. Why? Why? Why is your tax basis reduced by the full amount? Is that unfair? Is that outrageous? Why does Congress force taxpayers to reduce their tax basis? Mike?
So you don't get a deduction for your personal use?
So you don't get a deduction for your personal use because if you do the mathematics here, the basis will never get to 0, right? By year 7, the basis won't equal 0. I didn't do the computation, but it probably will equal something like 25,000, okay? if you allow a taxpayer who now has, after 7 years, an adjusted basis of 25,000, if they keep depreciating, right, they'll end up depreciating their personal use. So by doing what's in the code right here under 280F D2, it doesn't allow a taxpayer to get deductions for their personal use of the car. All right, so kind of nifty. Right? The people who put together these code sections, you got to be pretty good on top of your game. I thought that's an eloquent point. That makes sense. Go ahead.
So just to understand, in that case, the adjusted basis after year one would be more than $47,000?
No, it'd be 47,000.
It would still be 47,000.
Absolutely. And that makes sense because by the end it should still be zero, even though you had personal use of the car, or otherwise you would end up having deductions for the personal use of your car. And Congress wants to steer away from that, no pun intended. Question 2C gets a little bit technical. We're not going to have time to do it. It says, what result, no computations, the high and B above, if in year 4 and following the automobile is only used 50% for business use? So if this becomes 50% instead of 60%, the authors want to point out there's something called a recapture provision, that if you start using listed property, in this case an automobile, 50% or less in business, and that's, right now we just crossed that threshold, right? Went into 50%. You have to, what ends up happening is you have to recapture some of the benefits of this accelerated depreciation. But we're not going to have that conversation right now because, again, I'm not going to test you on that. I just want to call that to your attention. Let me just, if you look at page 424, the second full paragraph. You have to go to the, you have to use what's called, you guys know, the alternate depreciation system. And it's going to yield less depreciation, and whatever the difference is, it's going to be recaptured. But again, I'm not going to test you on that. I'm just, in the code, there's lots of recapture provisions. That's my only message there. Let's look at question 3. Vic purchased a restaurant from owner and made the following payments as part of the purchase in storing in a restaurant. Determine the deductibility of Vic's payments. A payment to owner for goodwill. Mike is.
I think that you can capitalize and then you could amortize it.
Okay, what's your authority that it's amortizable? What code section will you look at?
168.
Look at 197, which deals with intangibles. And then, let's see if it's a 197 asset. You want to turn your code to code section 197D, everyone? Oh, good news, guys. Boom. Code section 197D1A. Seems right on point, right, guys? That's question 3B. How about a payment to owner for a covenant not to compete? For a 5-year period. Is that a code section 197 intangible? Yes, what's our authority?
E.
Subsection 197D1E. How many years? This covenant not to compete is for 5 years. How many years do you have to amortize it over? 15. Even though it's the covenant not to compete is for 5 years, you still have to amortize it over 15 years.
Or amortize over 15 years.
Yeah. How about payment to media to advertise your restaurant on Yelp or wherever you're going to advertise your restaurant? Where do you weave that in? Let me just ask Jacqueline. What do you say, Jacqueline? Deductible? How would you handle that? You're whispering. So sure, Ben, do you? Sure. Alvin, what do you say? Elizabeth? Deductible immediately, right? Yeah. Advertising generally is a 162 expense, right, guys? The regulations under 187-2K, example 1, affirms this. Regulation 187-2K, example 1, affirms this. How about a payment to owner to buy restaurants, buy owner's restaurants franchise? How about a payment to owner to buy owner's restaurants franchise? And if you look, EK, what do you say? Brian, what do you say? Andy, what do you say?
Amortize it. 197 D1F.
D1F. Let's franchise, right? Question 3E. A payment to the state of New Jersey, to acquire a liquor license that has a 5-year life. Now, I'm just going to tell you what the regulation says. If you looked at the regulation, the author saying it too. If it's a payment to a state agency, the regulation says you can deduct it over that 5-year period. That's that regulation the author cited to. If it's a limited life. By way of contrast, if it's indefinite, then it's amortizable over 15 years. Where do you see that? Code section 197D1D. So there's a bifurcated answer. The governmental agency limits its use, you can take it over that period. If it doesn't limit its use, you're supposed to use 15 years. Question 4. Lawson incurs $3,000 worth of expenses to take bar review course and $500 in bar admission fees. Discuss the deductibility of these expenses. We're drawn to 2 different places. Now let's take each one independent of the other. What about the $3,000 of expenses for the bar review course or a CPA review course? I don't know if the person, if they were becoming a lawyer or becoming an accountant. Your review course, Angel, deductible or not, and Matt G, see if you agree. You said no, Matt? G?
Agreed.
Agreed. Why, Matt G?
Because discussed it last class.
How is that?
You're, because it's a law student, they're not advancing the skill that they already have.
So regulation 162-5, right? This is to meet the minimum requirements to become a lawyer. They're incurring this expense, right? So it's non-deductible. Right, so just like any of these fees, to qualify for new trade or business, they're not deductible, agreed? The bar admission fee, theoretically, you might deduct under 197D1D, right? Because you're acquiring a license, right? A bar admission fee. So if your notes, looks like theoretically it might be amortizable over 15 years. Query, however, in the world of Code Section 67G, which doesn't allow employees to take miscellaneous itemized deductions, right? Employee expenses have to exceed 2% of your adjusted gross income, and they constitute miscellaneous itemized deductions. At least for the time being, this expense would be disallowed anyway, right? Code Section 67G. All right, final leg of our tour tonight, guys, is real estate. We're in Trump world, right? Real estate. And I want you to know the basics of deductions here. Basics. And we know that essentially for real estate we have three choices. Generally, real estate, residential real estate is over 27.5. Commercials under 39 years. And under the alternative depreciation system, residential real estate is assigned a 30-year class life or a 40-year class life. So you have those choices, 27.5, 39, and in rare instances, 30 and 40. For the time being, until Congress irons out, there's some discrepancies on how qualified improvement property will be handled. So until that's resolved, we're going to skip that. And I'm just going to point out to you, and the authors have some questions on this. Congress sometimes gives some nice breaks to real estate. There's real rehabilitation credits that are very generous. Rehabilitation credits for certified historical structures. And likewise, the real estate industry is very strong. There's no unhappy faces. Low-income housing credits are very generous as well. Very complicated area. We could spend a whole day or two talking about low-income housing credits, what qualifies and what doesn't. We're not going to go that route. Okay, we're going to keep it much simpler.
So these two credits, we don't have to know for the test, or?
You're not going to have, I'm not going to test you on anything to do with low-income housing credits. Let's do the problems because we only have 20 minutes. On page 431. During the current year, depreciator purchases a new piece of improved real estate, cost of $100,000 attributable to the building, 30 to the land. Depreciator immediately rents the property to others. Compute depreciator's deduction. Now, it's going to make it too easy, okay? I will not be as easy on the exam because it says in the subsequent year. I want to know what the depreciation is in year 1 and perhaps in year 2. So let's just pretend the person purchases the property today. What is the first year of depreciation, and then what is year two? Everyone understand? What's today, November 12th?
Yeah, November 12th.
Okay, so they purchased it November 12th. Tell me what the depreciation deduction is today that the building is an apartment complex. What it is today and what it will be in 2019. Come up with two numbers. So let's see if you get the two numbers. Okay, you got two numbers? Yeah, Andy? This year's depreciation and next year's depreciation. Okay, you got two numbers? Leo? Mike?
Still working.
Patrick, you got two numbers?
I do.
Let me hear them.
For year one, $454.
400 what?
$54.
And year two?
$3,636.36.
Tell me, Patrick, how you got year one?
So I did 100,000, because that's attributed to the building, times 1/27.5, and then times 1.5 for the Misquoter Convention.
You come up with what?
$454.
In year two?
I just did 100,000 times 1/27.5.
That's it, guys. Piece of cake, right? 3 points on an exam, right? Everyone go with that?
Why would that be commercial?
What do you mean? I don't understand your question. It's an apartment building.
Non-residential real, okay, sorry. I did over 39 years.
Anyone have a problem? Anyone doesn't see the answer? Can I have one more permutation of this? Suppose the person sold it in year two, November 12th of year two. Everyone got it? They sold the property. Year one, this is the depreciation, agreed? Year two, they're gonna sell it. November 12th, year two. Come up with a number, don't say it out loud. Right, Nick S., this has your name on it. David, see if you agree. What's year two, David? And Nick.
$3,182.
David, agree or disagree? Driver, agree or disagree? Ben?
I didn't do the math, but that sounds right.
Ron?
I have 1809.
1809? Okay. David and Nick are comparing notes.
I agree with you.
Just tell us how you got it, Nick.
The same calculation as the first line, except instead of using 1.5, use 10.5.
Why 10.5 over 12?
Because you would have held the property for.
You know, held the property until November. Most of the year has gone by. Right, Joe? So So that's why we're gonna use the mid-month convention, but it's the exact opposite, right? We sold it in November, so that's 10.5. If we had sold it in December, it would be 11.5 over 12, right, BK? Everyone's gonna remember to flip it, right? If we bought it in November, it's 1.5, and we sell it in November, it's 10.5. And what's the number, just for, so everyone can write it down?
3,182.
Suppose it's an office complex. Like F, what's year one?
It would be 100,000 times 1 over 39. And then are we assuming that it's bought in November again?
Yep.
1 times 1.5 over 12.
And what's the answer?
$321.
21. From year two? $2,564,064. Right? Question C. The buildings are at A and B, are not new property, and they were purchased by Depreciator's sister, who originally purchased them in 1982. Again, we're not gonna worry about question C. It deals with the so-called anti-churning rules of 168F5. Suppose Depreciator elects the alternate depreciation with respect to A and B above. What would be the depreciation in year two if we elect the alternate depreciation? In year two. Well, is it 100,000 times what? 1 over 30. And isn't it with respect to the commercial 100,000 times 1 over 40? So this is $3,333. And this is $2,500. That's year two. I didn't get into year one, but you just apply the convention in year one, right? The important point is the denominator changes, right? Under the alternate depreciation system. Okay, question E. Some years later, $150,000 was spent to make